What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Who are the biggest winners and losers of the giant April patch that we just went through? We're going to be predicting the meta, what decks will rise up and take Sherry's spot. And lastly, we're going to be ranking the pool 4 and 5 cards in a tier list now that the card series drops have happened. Who are the best cards to purchase with your tokens? We're going to be talking about all that and more on today's episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I am joined by Mr. Alex Coccia, and we said it was going to be a big week, and my God, did they deliver, dude. What a week of Marvel Snap with a lot of changes.
No kidding. It's an absolutely wild week to be a Marvel Snap player, and that patch was insane. And of course, I love the idea of all the balance patch changes. I love the balance stuff, but like the surprises they sneak in there always get me, Cozy. I absolutely like the new board. It's such a beautiful thing, and I can't wait for them to like continue to improve on the game and even like the smallest ways. But for me, that's a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, I love the little things that get packed in. Like the new board looks incredible, and it gives me hope that they can slot in other boards and thematic, maybe season boards in the future. We talked about that with the revamp of the season pass. The visuals, I don't know if they just like up the vibrance on the lighting or something, but just the card effects are much more pronounced both on the game board and in the collection screen. I don't know about you, but they're almost like too pronounced here. They do their little like animation constantly and stuff. It's really surprising, and I love what they did.
Yeah, no kidding. And again, you said it perfectly, that the packaged in components of the patches are actually some of my favorite parts, because like it just goes to show how quickly this game is like iterating. It's like it's getting better every single patch, legitimately getting better every single patch. And you know that I talk about on my wish list all the time, that one of the things I'm most looking forward to is that widescreen PC UI. And I feel like we're getting closer. Cozy.
For sure. This patch was so important. Right, like this patch was probably the most important patch, right up there with the Zabu, Silver Surfer craziness that we went through like at the beginning of the year, of just like proving to the player base that they're listening and kind of throwing in some goodies. And man, I give it a 10 out of 10. I think they did a great job with the card balance. We're obviously going to be talking about the winners and losers today. The visual changes, things like that. The token shop change, that was really well done too. I like the fact that you can now kind of have a variant section that you can pin. You have a series 4 and 5. You have the card of the week. It's crazy how many iterations the token shop has gone through, and it's like slowly getting better and better. And I like that. I like that they're not, moving on to the next thing. And it's probably still not done. I'm sure there's more that they're working on for card acquisition and the way that it works. As I keep saying, we're kind of in the building months, and we're about to kind of like blast off here from May onward with the new game mode coming out, and then what I think they're setting up for. It's cool. Ben Brode's going against Shroud, man. That's so cool too. Like just the exposure there, and they're still not done marketing, right? And so all these things combined, it just proves that they're in it. And I was actually just watching Ben Brode versus Shroud, and Shroud was going off like, yeah, this game's legit. It's not going anywhere. And when you have someone of that magnitude saying that, I mean, that's nothing but good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely great for the game. And obviously Shroud has a highly competitive nature, right? So it speaks very well for the competitive future of Marvel Snap to have someone of Shroud's caliber talking about its potential going forward. So yeah, I absolutely love the idea of someone of that skill set, who, by the way, plays a ton of Snap. His collection level, I didn't realize, was like almost 8K.
Dude, so I saw it originally. Guys, if you don't know Shroud, CSGO, Apex Legends, very, very, very good gamer, big guy. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, here we go. A little sponsor action going on. We have a guy that doesn't know how to play Snap. And then he just completely, he took me by surprise. It showed me, too, how many closet fans there probably are of Snap because of it being a mobile game. And I forget that. Obviously, it's a mobile game. But because of that, you have these just pure gamer, competitive people by heart that are picking up and playing it. And that's only going to be really good for the game's future and health and feedback, marketing, everything.
You're absolutely right. And there's something that I had never really considered and that came to mind when I was actually watching Ben Brode's GDC talk. He actually recently tweeted out, and he talked about how Marvel Snap was a mobile first card game. And it didn't actually occur to me. He said it, and he said it in passing. I was like, that's right. Hearthstone and all the others, they launched either on paper first in the case of Magic. In Hearthstone's case, it launched obviously on PC first and didn't have a mobile client for the longest time. I remember being a Hearthstone player and being like, I'd love to have a mobile client. Snap's doing it the opposite way, and obviously learning lessons from the prior experience. Ben would know that this is probably the preferred method of going, right? So when we have those two clients, I think it's going to open up a whole new wave of interest in this game.
Oh, there's people that strictly only play on PC. So much so that if the inbox sends something, they're like, I don't know how to get, they don't have it on mobile. It's not even an option, which is funny because that's crazy to me. I will say as much as I play way more on PC, but I definitely prefer playing on my iPad, but really as well as my phone. I think it's just, it feels like it's meant for that, you know? Although when widescreen UI comes out, I mean, let's be honest, I'll be playing on the PC.
Especially with the art team. Like, this art team is so good. Can you believe, like, they're going to make the greatest board? And then, like, in the future, season passes, listen, you can charge me 8,000 gold for a beautiful board. I will pay that gold. I think this art team is going to knock it out of the park when they get the opportunity.
The art team has never missed. And for most of the balance patches, I haven't had, like, a huge head scratch. I think they've done a good job, and they've proven themselves there, which... You look at the game, those are some of the most important things, yeah? Now, Alex, before we talk too much about just everything that has happened in this patch, what are we talking about on your side of the channel?
I'm glad you asked, because we're going to be talking about some heavy-hitting subjects, including Shuri. Is Shuri still meta? Like, Shuri saw a significant change, but I think it's taking a lot of people by surprise, because I think there's still some legitimate viability in the Shuri-based list. We're also going to talk about bots and Marvel Snap, and whether or not it's good for the experience overall, whether you're a competitive player, a casual player. We're going to have that discussion, and we'd be interested in hearing your comments as well. And we're also going to be talking about the next Shuri. What is going to be the next card that's going to piss everyone off?
Again, a lot of great things coming, a lot of subjects to talk about. To start off, though, the first thing we have to announce, this will be our last Snapchat on a Thursday. We are going to be having Snapchat moving forward on, drumroll, Mondays, guys. We decided Mondays for multiple reasons, but mainly outside of this week, all the card balance changes will happen on a Thursday, and that gives us time to play, test, and figure it all out. And then we can't do it on, obviously, the other days because we have different things that come up during those days, and Wednesday's too far removed. So Monday it is. We're going to start and kick off your week with a fresh cup of coffee and the Snapchat, and I'm actually excited. I think Monday's a great day.
Yeah, I can't wait to get started. I mean, with these patch changes coming up being weekly, and I like the idea of doing it on the Monday because it gives us a chance to like test some things, be a little more informed, because I think that that's important. I want to be more informed on the cards and the changes and the meta before we have the opportunity to sit down and talk about it.
Yep, exactly, guys. So with all that, we're going to go and jump into not only our subjects, but we have obviously the card of the week and the new card of the week. And guys, the new card, obviously, Jeff will be talking about over on Alex's channel. But the card of the week, I try to always pick something somewhat relevant. And we're going to talk Super Skrull, one of the new series card drops, or one of the new cards that drop series into finally Pool 3, Alex. He's an interesting card. I definitely think he's a lot of fun. I think he offers something very unique to your deck. And as far as that 4-cost slot goes, I like what he offers.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting card. And I mean, it's funny. I'm old school loving Super Skrull. If you don't remember correctly, I'm going to have that first edition badge because it was one of the first cards that I bought. And I got to be honest with you, I took some emotional damage when I did that. Like, it felt bad at the time because I didn't have Zabu. Zabu was not in the game yet. It often felt like the card that was like either the best card in my hand or the absolute worst draw I could have possibly had. And I think that the Shuri meta really killed it because Shuri was so prevalent and Super Skrull had no place in the Shuri meta. But now we're seeing Patriot. We're seeing all these different things come out, and suddenly Super Skrull has a role to play.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. What I did to kind of see about his viability is I pulled up the top most played ongoing cards, Alex. And I wanted to see this. I wanted to see what's being played the most right now. And of those cards, which ones are going to help Super Skrull, which ones are like great to steal that ongoing ability. And luckily, we are seeing a lot of great ongoing cards, but sometimes they're not great, right? Obviously, things like Sandman isn't going to be a big deal if you copy that ongoing. But starting with the very top, the #1 played ongoing card is going to be Lizard. Obviously, we know that. And that is obviously a negative. You know, it's not a big deal. I don't think it's game-changing. He'll lose 3 power, but if that's the only ongoing card, then obviously not that great. #2's Armor, which, you know, not a big deal. I think it's nice to have a double armor lane. Sometimes that can maybe hurt you, but for the most part, not too bad. But the next two are interesting, all right? Zabu comes in as the 3rd most played ongoing card. And I don't know about you. I mean, a free Zabu is always fantastic. I don't know how many 4-cost drops you have after Super Skrull, but I really like the Zabu here. And then at 4th, Alex, is Electro right now. And that is where I think you're going to see after Electro, it's pretty much all good ongoing cards for Super Skrull, but I think Electro kind of keeps Super Skrull in check, right? Because we're about to enter a heavy Electro era, and this is the last ongoing effect you want to copy.
Yeah, no kidding. And I think we're going to see a lot of Electro. Sandman Ramp is very popular right now. It's a very strong archetype. And it's one of those things where, like, yeah, like it definitely holds Super Skrull in check. But I think that's important, too. Like, you need these counteract these counterbalance kind of cards. But at the same time, Super Skrull does feel like a feast or famine card. Like when you see a Devil Dinosaur on the other side, like you just kind of smile, even though if your deck's not like designed to take advantage of it, like even if you copy the effect, right? The problem is that, you're not designing your deck to just boost your hand, right? Because you copy the effect, but not the value, right?
Yep.
So like it's a really interesting card. I really like the design of Super Skrull, and I think it's just maybe not this meta, but it might have its chance to shine, and you don't know when. It's gonna have its moment.
It handles a lot of decks out there without handling them too well, if that makes sense. So Devil Dinosaur, funny you say, is the 5th most played ongoing card, and usually you're going to get the value there anyway. That's just a great card to copy the ability of. They're really depending on that lane to win for Devil, but then you boost another lane, so it makes it pretty tough. Blue Marvel comes in after that, so obviously probably, I would argue, one of the best, if not the best one to copy outside of our next card. Blue Marvel, obviously great. +1 across the board for free. Sarah is, without a doubt, the best probably Super Skrull card that you can copy. I think this is the most common, like, you're going to win the game because they spin it on Sarah, or you put Super Skrull out on 4 because you kind of predicted they were going to play. I think the problem is, when do you play Super Skrull? Because do you wait till they put a good ongoing card in? And how do you judge that?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, I guess that comes down to knowledge of the specific archetypes. Like we talked a long time ago about the ability to kind of predict archetypes, understanding that, okay, here's their play pattern on turn 1 and 2. Do I identify this as a Patriot list? Do I identify it as a Hitmonkey list? Like what kind of list is this? Is this a Silver Surfer, Sarah Surfer, right? And having that opportunity gives you kind of some insight as to where you should be playing Super Skrull. However, the thing is you don't want to play a card like Super Skrull on turn 4 because it's 2 power. Like it's a 4 power gap to White Queen, who still has a great effect, power, like maintains initiative. So like Super Skrull, you just don't want to just throw out there. So it's very tricky to play him correctly because again, he can feel like a dead hand. And something that I've been debating about is Super Skrull better than Enchantress? Like if you have the option, do you take Super Skrull or do you take Enchantress?
I think you take Enchantress if you're trying to stop it because of what you just said. So take, for a great example, this would be the #1 played probably ongoing card if everyone had access, but Darkhawk, right? Darkhawk, Super Scrolling it, you're not getting much out of it. You're going to add maybe 6 power, which is fine, but they probably built their Darkhawk deck to just spam, and get the Korgs and the Rock Slides, whereas Enchantress shuts it down. So I would probably lean towards Enchantress, with that being said.
I would agree with that. I would agree that Enchantress is probably the safer play, especially if like in just any deck, the 4/4 feels a lot better. But it's wild what specifically Super Skrull will do to a Galactus player. Because you know what's really common in Galactus decks?
Null.
It's one of your favorite cards in the game. I know it is. And you know who absolutely loves having Null's ability copied? Not Galactus players.
Yeah, exactly. No, Null is, so to finish up our list, I love that you brought up Null. So we had Sarah, Red Skull, another bad card, obviously one of the worst, but with him being tamed down, it's a lot safer to play. Iron Man, way up there as well on just a really good Super Skrull card. Darkhawk, and then Null. And so, yes, that's what I was talking about. Like, he's just a good answer to so much out there, right? Devil Dino decks, Sarah decks with these Iron Mans that are popping up everywhere, the Bastriot decks, if you will. And then Galactus. Definitely a very unique card and one that has dropped series. I probably would not buy him with the tokens or pick him as my unlock. There's far better ones out there, but, you could be excited if you do grab them. Now, with that, Alex, let's go to our first subject, and that is the biggest winners and losers of the giant balance patch. We saw a lot happen between Shuri and Leech, and we saw, obviously, our first card we have to talk about as a winner, and that's going to be Leader. Now, we can't really mention Leader without talking about, obviously, Sandman as well. I think both of these were giant winners in this patch. We'll get to Sandman, but we obviously have to get to Slim Shady first. He's back again. It's Leader, man, and I think they did a pretty good job. A lot of his scariness, I think, right now is tied to our other winner in Sandman. But, Alex, I think copying the enemy's highest power card played on this turn, and that also includes if they're tied in power, solves a lot of issues. It fixes Leader's viability, but then it also kind of keeps other cards in check like Doctor Doom in a way. What are your thoughts on Leader, and did they do a good job with this necessary evil, and did they resurrect him from what was definitely the dead?
So the first thing I'll say is I'm not sure if Leader falls into the necessary evil category. Like I get where you're going with it, but at the same time, it's like we did kind of survive without him for a while. But then again, like if we had him, would the Shuri meta have been a little easier to deal with? It's an interesting question, I guess, right? It's worth noting that the original leader was ridiculously overpowered. The nerfed leader was ridiculously awful. So we have both extremes. This leader seems to be an excellent marriage. And I feel like it's kind of like a lesson learned from the Arrow nerf, because the Arrow nerf was kind of the same. Arrow used to be like a catch-all. Leader used to be a catch-all. And then what they did was they kind of streamlined the effectiveness to like one particular card or one particular effect. And as a 6-2, you still have to have initiative. So the rules still apply with what leader was intended to be, right? Kind of like a good initiative. Like leader makes the early game matter. Yes. Right, which I think is what I liked about the card. So I do like the change, Cozy.
Yeah, I mean, the people that aren't going to like leader are the ones that are all in on the, the combo heavy deck with their big card, whatever that might be. And we'll talk about that with some losers. But I do think it is necessary to have him. And it does. You brought up a great point. He's now going to be a plug and play card for those cards that are focused on the early turn. I thought 2 power was perfect. Definitely is far from a lane winner, but at least can add a little something while also copying your opponent. And the person that would lose to the copy effect isn't seeing the games that the other leader player lost by not winning with the copy effect, right? There's plenty of examples where that's not going to happen. If you don't have priority, yeah, you're going to copy. If they play Hitmonkey and a bunch of Mysterios, then you're looking at maybe the mistake. It's going to mess up what you're trying to do without the priority. So it rewards players for, yeah, I guess a little bit of game management, if you will. Time will tell. I think he's always going to be a hated card because of the nature of what he does. But I do feel like this could and should be the perfect balance spot. I just want to say the other people I have as winners are tied to leader. And again, people know I'm a big Daredevil fan, but I think Daredevil actually got a lot better because of leader and because of the way the playstyle is going to work out. Not only because of the possibility of a turn 5 leader, which you can obviously do multiple things to get done, but also setting you up for the turn 6 to then leader, right? Like this is, I think control leader is going to be in the meta in some degree. So things like Daredevil, and then honestly, I'm not saying to purchase it, we're going to rank it, Ghost as well. A priority card, giving priority. You don't want the leader. You don't want priority with leader. So very interesting, but these 2 cards I have as definite winners because of that.
It's fascinating to think about how like one change to a specific card can have a huge impact on other cards, right? Like the change to leader really is a buff to Sandman, right? It really brings Sandman up. Just like when I talked about prior, like weeks ago, where we said like the nerf to Arrow did suck. Like it was a pretty big nerf. But then again, if you're playing a wave 5 list or you're playing Sandman, suddenly Arrow still makes perfect sense. It does exactly what you want it to do. Yep. And it doesn't have a universal application where you just throw Arrow into every deck and she just wins the games for you. You have to have a strategy for it, and I like that.
I agree. I want to talk about Sandman though, because here's the thing about him, okay? Sandman, again, we've talked about it. It's our job as content creators not to pump him up too much. We don't want him out there in the meta, but it's too late. I did my best decks at every rank series, and it was funny. Sandman was in there a lot towards 80 to Infinite. He was in there a ton. Electro, Sandman, Ramp. Well, now, with Leader, you have multiple cards, and that was the thing. You kind of had to rely on Dr. Doom and Odin for that to really pop off. But now with the introduction of Leader, you have multiple win condition cards, Arrow, Leader, and now Dr. Doom, obviously, or now Leader, should I say, that can pop off and work all together. Sandman is a huge winner because of that. And we're going to talk about it on your side of the channel, but I think he is going to be way up there as the next villain card. As soon as maybe next Thursday or the one after that, they might adjust his power.
It's funny you say that, because I think that like they identified Sandman as one of the cards that like really needed a close eye, like Leech, Sandman. There's a couple that like you really got to pay attention to. Like these cards cannot be meta defining, because if they are, then they're probably too strong or they're having like a really rough effect on the game. Sandman is one of those cards. And what's interesting to think about is I remember like, the development team talked about how like there are release valves in the game. And Sandman is a release valve for those like turn 6 combo plays. Now Sandman and Leech do kind of similar things. But when you restrict card play in a card game, you're playing a dangerous game with your players' emotions.
I agree. Sandman as the top deck is never a good thing. Sandman should be in the top decks to keep that counter balance. But here's the thing, right? People that play those Hitmonkey decks, right? They hate Sandman. Those are the people on Twitter, the combo decks, the explosive decks. But then the people that hate those decks, they love Sandman. And it's the same thing. You can look at this in different areas. People that hate Wong and On Reveal play Cosmo. People that love Wong and On Reveal hate Cosmo, right? So it's this interesting, I don't know if I said that backwards, but I think you know what I'm talking about. It's this interesting wheel of hate and love that there's always going to be disagreements. Some people love explosive 10 cards on a turn, and other people are like, no, screw that, man. I'm going to play Sandman and win with 1 card. For me, it's tough to be on the camp of Sandman because I love creativity and wild finishes. Sandman seems pretty linear, but I think it's important that he is in the top-ish 5-10 decks. As for another winner, just a brief touch, I am going to say both, really Darkhawk is, in my book, a big winner because he is one of the few decks now. He didn't get touched. He didn't get touched in the patch, nor did I think he should or would have. But because of that, he's going to have a really strong dominance, man. He's going to be a relied on deck. Him and Devil Dinosaur are just like the 2 buddies that you can rely on now consistently.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Darkhawk out there right now. Some YouTuber I follow releases like Rocks and Hawks deck, and then now I feel like it's all over the place. You know, I'd love to talk to that guy about, you know, how he designs his decks to make them absolutely so soul crushing. But I got to tell you, it's a damn good deck that wins games. I won quite a few playing that the Rocks and Hawks deck, my friend. It was a solid one. Honestly, the list is just pure fire. It's so good. And like, I love the fact that you've been playing it for so long because like even with like the list you presented and the way you presented, like it is so refined. Like it's so refined, and like if you haven't watched that video, you have to. It's easy. It's easy cubes. It's legit. The title is not clickbait. It is 100% factual. It is such a damn good deck. And yeah, I think Darkhawk is a huge winner.
To build his power, you're in turn disrupting their deck, and that's like the marriage of that is so beautiful. And I think that's why he's going to consistently be where he's at and stay a really good card. But Alex, with Leader, with Sandman, I want to talk about who I think is a sleeper of a winner. And that's Destroyer. Now, this used to be the kind of meme answer to Leader back in the day, right? But I do think Destroyer decks are going to make a comeback. Whether that's with Sandman or not, this will be the way to handle Leader dependably. And having a Destroyer Sandman Electro deck, it's spicy. It's hot now because they copy that Leader. It's game over. Absolutely game over. They're going to destroy their entire board. I think Destroyer, because of the recent changes to everything, is a winner, and he's still good to play against the Sandman.
Actually, it's funny you bring up Destroyer because Destroyer is one of those cards that I've seen like probably the most experimentation over the last couple of weeks because like it used to be just ongoing Destroyer. You play the Destroyer list, you play the Armor, Warpath, Spectrum possibly if you had to, right? And like that was like the tried, test, and true Destroyer. Like you knew exactly what was happening. That was the meta months ago. And then it kind of just fell off. It got changed from 616 to 615. Can you believe it? That like it fell out. It fell out completely. 1 power completely took the card out. And now you're seeing with the emergence of Null in Pool 4, you're seeing some creative Destroy lists. And I like it. I like seeing Destroyer being used in these creative ways. And I think that it's a really fascinating card. It's like an iconic card. Yeah,
for sure. So this is definitely the next deck guide I'll be doing. Something that I think early Pool 3 players can capitalize on if they're stuck in a rock and a hard place. But another kind of sneaky winner that I had, and again, we might talk about them later, and I like it because I think they finally have a spot. They're like the perfectly balanced cards together, and that is going to be Vision and Captain Marvel together. These are the 2 Shuri cards now. These are the ones that I think are the Shuri cards, having a 14 movable card. Doesn't matter if you play it on top of Shuri's lane, as well as Captain Marvel being a 12 bomb you can move around. I mean, heck, Captain Marvel, Shuri, Captain Marvel Leader. I mean, you have a lot of solved answers in that one little, combo there. I think they won because of that.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, Captain Marvel, Vision, they're fantastic cards, and especially when you consider what the Sandman style effects and the mobility that you could utilize to really close out a game. And the thing I love about Cap Marvel is that Cozy, honestly, sometimes I get tilted. I play like a total scrub. And you know who saves me? Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel will save me more often than not because I love Vision. Vision's fantastic. But like there's something beautiful about that end of the game state and having Captain Marvel just be like, I got you. You misplayed, but I got you.
But isn't it great when she's like higher, further, faster, and she goes up and she goes right back down because you're like, oh, are you going to save me? Because you can't do the math quick enough. And then she's like, no, I'm going to go right back up and right back down and lose it. But yeah, she can be a game saver for sure. And I think people that did enjoy Shuri, this is probably going to be the card that you would want to play. Alex, before we move on, do you have any other kind of winners, losers? I think there's some middle ground cards, and I definitely have a loser that we haven't talked about that's near and dear to my heart.
I feel like I'm the only one the only one that throws this card out on turn 1 with like absolute confidence, and that's Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw is most certainly a winner, and I'll explain why. You might be thinking, Alex, you're crazy, and yes, I am. But also, Ebony Maw is a 1/7. Okay, I very consistently throw it out on turn 1, 2, or 3. And the thing I love about it is your boy Jeff the Shark. Jeff the Shark gets right in there. You can play Jeff the Shark in there. You got all these options now, and I think that it really takes some of the edge off of Ebony Maw. So this new meta, I think Ebony Maw sees a little bit of value. And when you consider that you have the Sandman meta as well, Ebony Maw becomes a little more difficult to answer, especially when you consider that, you know, you got that Doom Odin package. I mean, that lane may as well be full.
Yep, I do think he will. He is a perfectly balanced card, in my opinion, too, because he comes with such a he is one of those cards that go in your deck, and you do have to build your deck around him, right? He doesn't slot into a deck. You have to make sure he fits, but that's what makes him great. And right now, because of the meta, I do agree. I think he is one of the better one-drops.
And it can't be understated how well this card synergizes with Doctor Doom, with Vision, with Captain Marvel. We just finished talking about these cards, right? These are insurance policies, safety blankets, whatever you want to call, to allow that 1/7 guy. It's a 1/7. Chavez is a 6/9 and costs 6 power. You know what I mean? It's a 1/7. So I mean, like, Maximus is a 3/7, and it gives your opponent 2 cards in a game where card draw is like near impossible. Like, it is immensely powerful, and if you can kind of mitigate its disadvantages, and I'm not even going to bring up the Ebony Maw Viper combination, which I've been known to try every once in a while. I'm telling you, it's a good card. And I think with the addition of Jeff the Shark and the Sandman meta, I think it's making a huge comeback.
Yeah, so I think that brings us to one that I'm sure plenty of people are going to be asking about. It's Lockjaw. Lockjaw. And you know, when I read that Lockjaw got the change, it hurt, right? I was like, oh man, no, he got it. Like, I love Lockjaw. And then I read it. I was like, wait a second. I'm going to give him a winner and a loser. And the winner is probably what shocks people, because, you know, what possibly only having once per turn, how could that be a win? Well, take example, the Jane Jaw deck, right? Now you can cycle out your hammer on the last turn of the game, and then there's been so many times, Alex, so many times that I've wanted to play a card in that lane, but I'm like, I don't want it to cycle out. I need it to stay there for the power, and I think it's gonna change the play style of Lockjaw. I would say the biggest loser out of all of them would have been Thanos, right? As far as the way that his playstyle worked with Lockjaw. But as far as Jaw himself, I think long-term, this should be a good change.
I absolutely agree. I think that it's a higher skill cap card. I think they added additional complexity and depth to the card, because what you have now is you have like play around options. Because before, you're right, like if you had to add power to the Lockjaw location, your only option was gambling. And like you could play Mjolnir, and then you had like, well, I gotta throw like an Iceman. I gotta throw something in there to try and pull something bigger. And now you can be like, I'm gonna Mjolnir, and I'm gonna drop like whatever it is to win that location, and it's gonna stick, right? I think that's super important. Anytime you have a card that like has additional complexity but also increases the skill cap, I'm all for it, because Marvel Snap it's so easy to get into. It's such an amazingly accessible game. But a change like this, I think in the hands of a truly excellent player, I think really elevates Lockjaw as a whole. I do. Yeah. I think it makes it a better like high skill cap deck.
Obviously, Thanos did take a hit because Lockjaw Thanos was just finding all these breeds. Dude, control everything you could imagine in an archetype. Thanos Lockjaw kind of worked, right? Iron Man was popping up in those decks. I'll say this though, as somebody that has liked Thanos a lot and played him a ton, going all the way back to when he came out, I'm very happy for Thanos, because I stopped playing Thanos because it pigeonholed him. He was only in Lockjaw decks, and that was like the main deck he was in. There's a couple ongoing decks. I love that now Thanos can enter in his own kind of realm that isn't strictly tied to Lockjaw, although Lockjaw still being a good card to have with him.
I know you're an absolute lover of Thanos, so I have a question for you. With this change to Lockjaw, do you think it'd be appropriate in the future to revert the nerf to the Space Stone? Because like now, with Lockjaw being changed, I think there could be room to giving the original effect of Space Stone back.
No, I hate it. I hated what it did to Control, and it devalued cards like Jeff the Shark, or whatever coming out, because you were able to move into any location with ease, and I think that ruined Storm. Control, I feel like, is at a good spot right now. And I don't know if it needs to lose that. Like these cards that are like built to go around Control are there, so the Space Stone isn't. I get what you're saying, but I think what they did with the cloak effect, it should stay.
It's interesting you say that because like you're showing your light, you're kind of like your pedigree as a control player, someone who loves control by kind of like taking that approach to it. Because where I'm looking at it, I saw the Space Stone's nerf as less of an attack on like its ability to control the board state and more of an attack on its ability to clear the way for additional lockjaw procs, which is kind of the way I saw it. You play Space Stone, and then you get to pull stuff out of the way and play more into the lockjaw and keep that engine going, which is obviously also disruptive to Storm and everything else you just mentioned. But I kind of wondered, I'm like,
I feel like it's in a good spot, and now it opens up. Thanos players, don't freak out. He's going to be back. It's going to take some time to find the best decks, and there's a couple out there, but it's not discovered yet. He will be back, and definitely is a loser, but he will be fine, and I wouldn't worry too much if you did spin the tokens. Now, Alex, I want to close off the losers in this entire list with probably the biggest one, man. He got caught by a straight bullet. It hit him. They were going for other cards. They went for America Chavez, and they ended up hitting one of my favorite cards in Snap, who's wildly underplayed, and that's Cable. And I have to say, with Conquest coming out, I am saddened with Cable. Now, it says on his on reveal effect, put the bottom card of your opponent's deck into your hand. That might as well now say, on reveal, most likely put America Chavez in your deck, which by the time you pull Chavez on turn 2, she already did her job of condensing the opening hand. Man, it hurts big time, and I really hope they just change it to say pull a random card. I think that would fix it perfectly. If it's Chavez, it's Chavez, but at least there's some RNG mechanics in there.
I love what you said there, because honestly, I'm going to go a step further and say this on reveal actually says on reveal, retreat this game and remove this card from your deck. Because like you're not going to want it. You're not going to want it. I would make the argument that, okay, first of all, you don't want to pull Chavez, because if you're pulling Chavez, then it's actually done its job anyway, because it's still reduced the hand, like the deck size of your opponent anyways, and that's usually what you want Chavez for. It can be used on turn 6, like there are decks where you use it, but generally speaking, that's not why it's there.
So yeah, overall, a good amount of winners and losers, and a lot of like undecided, Alex. But with all this, we're going to go to our next subject, and we're going to talk predicting the meta. Now, early days, very early days. In fact, barely 24 hours after all the balance. And I always tell people, let it settle, let it breathe a little bit, because people are going to kind of quick jerk react and do their decks that they know are going to be good, but there's probably better decks out there now with these kind of big gatekeeping cards getting toned down, right? So let's talk the meta, and let's talk decks that probably for the next while are going to dominate. Now, we've talked Electro Sandman. That's got to be that is no question going to be a top 2 to 3 deck. The way it's designed, the way that it can be played, and the accessibility of that deck, it's going to be plaguing the ladders massively. It already is. It already is. That will be until it is addressed, or if it ever is addressed, that's got to be near the top, Alex.
Yeah, no kidding. And I think you hit it perfectly, by the way. You hit the nail on the head, Cozy, that the Sandman is like a pool 2 card. This is like an extremely accessible card, and that deck list as a whole is not expensive. And the other thing it has is cards like Doctor Doom and Odin, which obviously Odin's a card that everyone has. And the other side is that Doctor Doom is on everyone's top tier list. Like everyone's saying, get Doctor Doom with your like people bought Doctor Doom. Like if you had tokens to spare, you were buying Doctor Doom. You were unlocking Doctor Doom for free. People have these cards, so they're gonna turn to it. 100% they're gonna turn to it. So we're gonna see a ton of it. And we joked about it before. We're gonna see lots of Rocks and Hawks as well. I think that Dark Hawk is gonna be a riser, a huge riser. And I'd blame you, but it's a damn good list. We already joked about it.
Yeah, I think Devil Dinosaur, Darkhawk, Rocks and Hawks, and also a separate decks, right? You can take those as separate. Electro Sandman, those are going to be very dominant right now and have a great place. But still, guys, I think Bounce Disrupt, I think Hitmonkey decks will still exist plenty because those things punish decks. I mean, those decks can just slap, right? But obviously, they'll lose their matchups to Sandman if they happen to not get the cards out at the right time. Wave 5 is still very consistent, if not better than ever. I think
Wave 5 is amazing.
Oh, it's insane.
I cannot get enough of Wave 5. I love it. I'm trying to come up with unique ways of using Wave 5 and like unique archetypes. Honestly, oh my god, it's so good. Wave 5 is so good, and it's so satisfying because it's like a Sandman. It is like Sandman, except you get to play multiple cards.
My biggest problem with Wave 5 is that I end up waving or She-Hulking before turn 5. Like, I'm like, maybe I'll get my wave out because I'll build a deck to like capitalize on a couple wave cards, right? And then I end up just playing the wave early and stuff, but I like that. It gives you the option, and we're going to talk about the state of Sherry, but we are kidding ourselves. I can say this with confidence, I feel like they nailed it with Shuri in the fact that they didn't lead her. Like they said, they didn't lead her Shuri, but she is now competitive, but not over the top. Not even close to over the top. But she'll be great still. She's still a good card.
Yeah, she's still going to be good. And you actually touched on something really important as well. We talk about release valves. Now, I love Shuri. We're going to talk more about it later as well, because I do think that the change was very, very, very good. However, what I will say is, talking about release valves, if you're seeing a lot of Sandman ramp, Devil Dino, honestly, because those decks will not run Shang-Chi. You're not going to see Electro ramp often running Shang-Chi. If they are, they're psychopaths. Like, I can't, you know what I mean? Like, playing a 4-drop like that, it's crazy. And like, if you have, you know, big cards, if you're able to Moon Girl Devil Dino, like, you're able to just absolutely clap the cheeks of Electro players, because they're built to go wide. They can't go tall the way a Devil Dinosaur deck can. And I love that about this game. We're getting this like rock, scissors, paper meta right now that's starting to evolve. And I like that. I like that, Cozy.
Rock, scissors, paper? Rock, paper, scissors? You call it rock, scissors, paper?
Yeah, rock, scissors, paper. What do you call it?
Is that what it... Rock, paper, scissors.
I heard someone call it Rochambeau once, but I thought Rochambeau is when you kick someone in the balls.
Now, that person was just drunk. Rock, paper, scissors, scissor, rock, paper. I like them both. But I get... It's funny, right? It's like Darth Vader at the end of Return of the Jedi when he... It's spoiler, right? For a 40-year-old movie. When he throws Emperor Palpatine down, you're like, oh my god, the villain was a hero all along. The fact that Shuri might end up being the hero that we never knew we needed against Sandman, because you can now do the Taskmaster combo, and if you get leadered through a Sandman deck, first of all, the power output's there with Shuri, right? But if you get leadered and you Taskmaster, no big deal. That Taskmaster's going to copy some other card, man. So I kind of like it. I think it's very interesting to see how that's all going to play out. And Shuri might finally find that place where it's not super hated by the community, isn't terrible, but isn't the #1 deck, but is a top 10 deck.
I absolutely love what you said there for multiple reasons. One, you're absolutely right. That like having a viable place where Shuri can actually contribute positively to the meta is something we really want. We didn't want the card to get deleted. And the second reason why I love what you said is it goes to show how skilled you are at podcasting, because you managed to navigate us talking about kicking each other in the balls into an actual proper conversation about the meta relevance of Shuri. And like, there are very few people that would be able to do that.
Trying to keep it on track, you know, just trying to go from balls to Jedi. It's what I do. With the Shuri conversation, we have a couple more decks, right? So again, to recap, Electro, right? Darkhawk, top of the top. Wave 5, Monkey decks with bounce. I think leader control, Shuri. But obviously, guys, everyone's like, hey, Cozy, are you just going to brush by him? Are you going to act like nobody hates this card? No, guys, of course I'll bring him up. Galactus obviously is going to be a thing. And here's the deal. I'm not worried about Galactus because the devs have already talked about the game is not what they want if he's the top deck or near it. So he's gone. They will fix him. No question about it. In fact, I would probably be wary about diving into Galactus because of that. But right now, man, Galactus is in an insane spot. And it's going to be something that we're going to have to figure out around. And he's just one of those cards, man. It just feels bad. You got to sit through the animation. You already know you probably lost at that point. You try to win, and then Spider-Man comes out, and then you lose, right? So Galactus definitely up there in the meta report, and just has always been there for the last, since he's come out, right? For a while now. And lastly, for the meta, I'll just throw up the Hulk because he can represent it. Reliable Patriot, man. Old reliable. I think Patriot decks are fine. I think Patriot decks are still very consistently great, and I think they're going to be in the top 10 as well.
Oh, Patriot's wild right now. I was actually going to bring up how good Patriot is. I think Patriot's definitely a climbing deck right now. There's so many different variations of it. You're seeing the Thing and Abomination making comebacks, right? Listen, we've been craving a diverse meta for so long. So when I see Patriot out there, I'm like, hell yeah. This is what I want. Because Patriot was dead in the water 2 months ago. You'd never see Patriot. And like, you know what I'm really waiting for? And I was hoping Jeff was going to do it for us. I want the days where Cerebro's the one that's overpowered.
Oh my God, if that'll ever happen. I think locations will always keep it in check. But yeah, I mean, Patriot, right? Oh no, Sandman. Oh God. Who gives a rip?
Yeah,
you play Patriot, Mystique, Ultron, game over. It's done. They don't have a Cosmo in the deck, right? So I think Patriot, yes, great place. And there's a couple knobs to turn. And then we're looking at probably the best meta that we've been in a very long time. So those are kind of like my top decks at the moment. Plenty more can fit in there. Some great destroy decks, Deathway. There's a lot of great decks out there, but those are the ones that I think are going to kind of really hold down the meta to start us off, Alex. No question about it. Alex, this is a great point. We're going to switch over. You can see in the middle here, we have our pool 4 and 5 tier list. And people, by now, they have some of the cards that they wanted, right? They have their Darkhawk. Maybe they have a Null Galactus. But then they're sitting on their tokens. And then, like, I don't know what to get. What is worth it? So if you're an audio listener, we have different categories. We have S tier, which is an easy 6,000 tokens. Done. Put them away. A tier is the no regrets, right? The purchase that you can get, and you're going to feel pretty good about having access to that card early. B tier is wait till pool 4. C tier is wait till pool 3. And finally, we used to have the M'Baku tier. Alex, it's now the Snow Guard tier. Yeah, it is the Snow Guard tier, which is where we are going to start. Obviously, we can put them right here, man. Let's go ahead and start the ranking, my friend. And we're going to just kind of pick and choose, and we're going to start off with the Negasonic here. Just grabbing one right away. Where do you like Negasonic? Just gut feeling, go.
My gut feeling is at least wait till pool 4. Could drop to pool 3. I like the card. I have Negasonic. I think it's a really fascinating control piece. I love it. Like, it is really cool. I love how it beats Cosmo. It was a great counter for Shuri. I won lots of cubes off Shuri players with Negasonic. But at the same time, it is incredibly niche, but it is a fascinating card.
If you enjoy the playstyle, I think you can get her. I think you'll like her. I think in control decks with Daredevil, especially like, hey, Leech, if they play Leech on 5 and you saw it through Daredevil and you have priority, boom, it's dead. And they wasted that turn. I think Negasonic's in the best place that she's been. But yeah, I think she's going to be a wait till pool 4 for the majority of players, unless you're kind of all in on a Daredevil deck. I would agree there for sure, no question. Sauron, who I think actually has gone up in value because of the Shuri changes. And I think Zero Shuri Shuron is going to kind of make its way back a little bit. He is getting very close dropping down to pool 3, which is why I am going to have him in wait till pool 3 at the moment. He's just not needed, but I think he will be, Alex. Would you agree?
Sauron's fascinating here, and I think that there's a lot of potential for decks where you have like Stature, for instance, where Stature is going to be able to like work alongside Sauron, where you have like Sauron Stature turn 6 plays with Ebony Maw, which obviously you have 1/7 Stature as well. Like, it's crazy how much power you're able to put out, and I'm really interested in seeing what happens when Sauron drops down and more negative ongoing cards come out. I do agree 100%. I do think that it is a wait till pool 3 card. However, it's one of those cards I feel like it's going to age like wine, because like as more cards come out, I think its viability is going to just only increase.
I agree 100%. And with that, let's talk Stature, man. I think Stature was a card, again, I didn't talk a lot about because it was a new card and she definitely wasn't worth the 6,000 cost. Man, Stature does slap. And I think there's a lot of decks that work with Stature. I think she's only going to get better. Do you think she's worth it in pool 4? I think if you have Shuri, and you have, or you like the way she plays and you like the cards that kind of synergize with her, I think she might be worth it in pool 4.
Yeah, I could definitely see her being worth it in pool 4. My experience is like Shuri into Black Bolt into a combo piece with Stature is a pretty awesome combination. But Black Bolt still feels a little underwhelming. Like, you're often just like, I got rid of their Iceman. I got rid of their, like, it feels a little bad. You're not hitting death like you might want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Black Bolt feels like still a little underwhelming of the two, but Stature's incredible.
Quickly, we can blow through a couple. Dark Hawk is not worth 6K, but he was all of these at first. I am going to put him in the no regrets purchase. Wait till pool 4 is the same thing with him, right? But I do think he's a no regrets, and the earlier you bought him, the more you got to feast. He was at his crazy state. Now he's at his really good state, and he's going to continue to be there, Alex. And I don't think he's going to get nerfed. I don't.
I think they might restrain, because I think there is counterplay. I think that there are ways to deal with Darkhawk naturally. Man, what a day one purchase Darkhawk would have been.
Let's make some quick fire, easy decisions. Dazzler is going to be a wait till pool 3. Not necessarily a Snow Guard tier. That's reserved for the special of the special, Alex. I think we can both agree on that. We do have Null. And listen, man, we can just do Null and Galactus together. I think if you get them, now especially, it's an easy 6K. But it's the toughest one to place because I do think he is a ticking time bomb of an adjustment. And so it's going to happen. There's no way. I know it's going to happen. So that does have me a bit reserved. And Thanos has the Infinity Stones. He's got a lot working for him. Galactus, he does his thing. And if they mess with that too much, which they already kind of did, you can't do a double Hobgoblin Galactus anymore. That's gone. You can't do that anymore, right? So it's going to be interesting. Do you think Galactus is an easy 6K? I think we go as of right now, and I think it is a yes.
It's a yes because it's a permabad. Like, it's always going to be there. It's a big bad. It's always going to be 6K. So like, you can spend your tokens with confidence, knowing that thing ain't coming down. But the thing that's different about Galactus, to like when you compare it to like Thanos, is that there is a hard ceiling on Galactus, like a hard ceiling that it just will never cross. Because if it does, there's going to be a swift hammer that slaps it down. And I think that holds it back in terms of value. Like, Thanos had its run as the top S tier deck, and it's probably still going to be viable. Let's be honest. Galactus, I don't think will ever get to that point that Thanos got to, because it'll get slapped down so fast.
He's too polarizing. The play style, it's just too much. Yeah, I don't think he will either. And with that, Null, I think if you do get Galactus, Null is literally the easiest no regret purchase. If you don't get him, it's an awkward wording of B tier, but I would say B tier for Null. Let's move on, though. Let's go on to Zabu and talk about the gold standard of a nerf.
Yeah, Zabu is a no regrets purchase for sure, because like, this card is so good. It slots into so many different deck archetypes, and it is like the golden example of how to tune a card to, like, my original reaction was, oh, I think they nerfed Zabu to the ground. I'm like, wait a minute. I think this card is actually still good. I think it slots into more decks than it did before. I think that this is going to be a good damn card. And sure enough, it's still holding the meta together.
Yep, no question. I have two Zabus here for the visual viewers. We'll get rid of that one. We're going to go to now MODOK, who has dropped down to pool 4 now. And he is a key piece of discard. If you are a discard fan, I have no problem saying he's a no regret. I have no problem. I can't even say I would wait till pool 3, because if you are playing, you're not buying MODOK if you don't play discard. And so discard is a quiet sneaker. I don't know how we didn't mention it on the predicting the meta. I think it's going to be in the top 10, like maybe number 10, maybe number 9. MODOK's legit, man. Do you think he's a no regret if you like discard?
I love MODOK. I think it actually does so much for discard in a way that I think a lot of people don't talk about. Discard was all about, it's like a casino style list. It was about like discarding things and just hoping for the best. And like, oh, well, you need to have Invisible Woman if you want to play discard. And MODOK throws that all out. MODOK is the consistency. It provides you with a very clear play pattern for victory. And I think that discard could really benefit from that. I love MODOK. If you're playing discard, MODOK is an absolute must-have. I think the MODOK version of the deck list with like Morbius and Swarm and stuff like that is better than the Hela version.
Oh, for sure, without question. Which makes him a no-regret purchase. We're gonna put him in the A tier. Ghost just dropped down, and I think Ghost's best days are ahead of her. But I'll be honest, I've had access to her since the week she's come out. I'm gonna put her in wait till pool 3. Do I think she's underrated? Yes. You do not need her in a deck. Even with leader and the crazy, you don't need her. And there are cons that come with that ability. I think it's a high skill cap card, and I would say wait till pool 3.
It's a fantastic card, like especially with the drop down of Valkyrie. I think that like Valkyrie is a great Ghost combination, right? Like you kind of really want that. But you're right, like you really have to be careful with how you design your deck when you have something like Ghost. And I feel like it's a card that like when I'm designing decks, I'm looking at Ghost, I'm like, this is the one you cut. Like this is the card that gets cut, because it has a good effect, but if you're not skipping turn 1 already, right, there's going to be a very specific play pattern or goal you have for turn 1. Because if you're playing wave 5s, you're going to want Sunspot, right? There's all these considerations, and Ghost just doesn't quite cut it.
Yeah, it's like even with the Valkyrie list, I would do Nightcrawler over Ghost. I think I was like, I could probably get more use out of this than the one-time play. So yes, I would agree 100%. Let's move on, though. We're going to go to Sentry. And Sentry was just buffed. And I think Sentry is in a amazing place, dude. He is really good right now. He's really good. He works in so many deck lists now, and it's crazy to think that he is as viable as he is as a forecast. He does have his cons. There is a lot going on around him, and you have to know kind of how to play him and how to navigate his play style. Where do we have Sentry, man?
Sentry's interesting in the sense that, like, first of all, I've dodged pulling Sentry, so I've not had a chance to actually play with him. That's one of the few cards I don't have. But yeah, you're right. Like the actual play pattern of Sentry has been so wildly improved. It's crazy how much like of a swing, 2 power on either side, of course. So it's like 4 power total. Does make a huge difference, right? That is a massive, massive swing of power on something like a turn 6 where you're playing Viper. Like we talked about the Viper play. But like if you play Viper on turn 6, that's a huge power swing now. Like it is very different with that added additional power. So Sentry really got kind of buffed up. And he's obviously in pool 4. It's hard to say, Cozy. Like I lean towards it. I think you could wait till pool 3 with Sentry, but I think he's a very exciting pull if you pull him. But I don't know if I spend 3K on him. I'd be interested in your, because I haven't played with him. You have, so I'd be interested in your perspective.
I would say in the sense of stature, it feels like you're building this deck that does really high performance if you build it for that deck, and he doesn't rely on too many other cards. The Viper play sitting a -10 over now is so good. He works with Valkyrie now, works with Destroy, works with Invisible Woman, filling up the lane. I think I'm going to give him B tier. I think you could wait till pull 3. You don't need this card, but as a card, I want to give him a B tier. I think that feels good about with his viability overall. If you've been on the fence and you like the junk play style to add on to Viper, I think Sentry could be a great addition to your collection. Now, Nimrod, we'll make it quick. He's worth the maximum of tokens at the moment, is going to be for a while. Yeah, he's a tough one to place. If Galactus gets hurt, it even hurts even worse. Man, I have a hard time even saying pool 4 for now. At this moment, I do think pool 3.
Yeah, right now I would not be spending tokens on Nimrod. If there are changes, as you suggested, to any sort of the destroy meta, like Nimrod could come back, right? But like, I mean, the nerf to Shuri impacts Nimrod to some extent, right? Because that was a combination that was often being played. Yeah, Nimrod, I don't know. I ain't spending tokens on Nimrod.
Yep, for sure. We only have a few more. Thanos might be one of the most puzzling. I get people asking me so much right now. And going back to what we said at the beginning of the episode, I think Thanos will be fine. But right now, he's in a confusing spot, but he's a big bad. He'll always be the 6K tokens. Is he the number one thing you should spend your tokens on right now? Maybe let some things settle at the moment. If you have Thanos, though, don't regret it. I think he's still going to be a good card. I have him as an easy 6K.
I agree, because I think the thing that like we always come back to with Thanos too is that like this is a card that unlocks a completely new archetype that really plays Marvel Snap in a unique way. And I think that's important to understand. Like there is no deck like a Thanos deck. Like, you know what I mean? It does a very unique thing in Marvel Snap. And so I think that paying 6K to have a wholly new experience in the game is probably worth it. Knowing it's a big bad, knowing it's not coming down. And there's going to be new cards that come out that activate Thanos. It's going to happen, right? This is a deck that could, like, the next Destroy card could activate Thanos, right? The next ongoing card could activate Thanos. I think that it is probably a good 6K purchase. I would put it above Galactus, honestly.
Oh, for sure,
I feel like, yeah, I was going to say, I think that Thanos is definitely a more reliable purchase than Galactus. With this current meta, I mean, it's, as you mentioned before, we're probably going to have to do an update to this in a few weeks because, you know, things are changing fast. I mean, every week we're going to get a balance patch and things are going to be changing. But I do think that Thanos is a pretty reliable, easy 6K.
Now, moving on, Alex, we have a couple more. Shadow King just got his adjustment. Still going to put Shadow King in the wait era for pool 3. I think he is better, but he's still in an interesting spot. Better ways to spin your tokens. But he is not in the Snow Guard tier. He's not in the Snow Guard tier, so I will give him that. But let's talk now about Shayna. Someone who plays a decent amount. I'll say this. She's a lot of fun, man. She is a lot of fun to play. I like what she can do. Zulus really reap the benefits. However, there's a lot that can go wrong. I think she's a pool 3 card for sure. She's fun, but she's there's just RNG there. Yeah, she's a fun card. I think you can purchase her if you want to. But yeah, I would wait till pool 3. I have her like above, if this was left or right, I have her above probably most of these. Maybe everyone but Sauron here would be it. And again, I guess I'll adjust it at the end. This is not left to right on the C tier range. But yeah, I agree. Wait till pool 3 for Shauna. Master Molds is our next card. And you know, man, talk about no regrets, but probably wait till pool 4. Some of the best decks in the game right now that, again, we didn't mention in the meta prediction. Fold'em and Mold'em, or Mold'em and Fold'em. The Master Mold deck's really good at the moment. Really, really solid.
Yeah, so I actually pulled Master Mold. I was very fortunate to get it. And like, honestly, the card is great. It is a fantastic card. It opens up completely new avenues of disruption for your opponent. It's going to be a card that I think we're going to go to often as new cards come out. Especially, I think we're going to start targeting opponents' hands a little bit. And Master Mold is always going to be an excellent tool in that arsenal. And it's a great card. And I do agree. It's no regrets for me. No regrets for me, but I would suggest at this point wait until pool 4.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a Darkhawk level of like you get him early, you get to use him early and abuse him early. He's great, but he is kind of works with other cards, and I think there are some that can somewhat fill his spot, let's say in a junk or disrupt deck. Jeff the Shark, brand new, not a lot to say. I don't think he's in either of these categories. I would probably early put him in wait till pool 4 for now. And I think that could be generous. It could be, wildly off. But I feel like the games that I played him in, pool 4, if you play that style, he's kind of where Negasonic is in my head.
I agree. I think that he's definitely a wait till pool 4 card, but I bought him and I don't regret it. I actually like the card. It's one of those situations, like for me, like I had the tokens to spare because I've been like, very, kind of hesitant, cautious to spend too many tokens. He was too cute. Like it was literally the card art, the flavor of it. Like I had to get Jeff, and I did. And for me, I have no regrets. But I do agree that he is a very good 2-drop. He's a very good card. It's a shame because we're going to see the Sandman meta, and I think an answer to it is Jeff. Like, Jeff kind of helps out in the Sandman meta, but he's locked in pool 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, he's no regrets, but I do agree 100%. He's probably ultimately a B tier way for pool 4.
Yeah, and he's going to continue to get better. He's a card that will age like wine, as you used before, and pretty solid all around. I'm excited to get more playtesting. I haven't gotten to play with him enough, but that's my early ranking. Silver Surfer, I think, is a really tough one. I think that he's kind of like Thanos. He unlocks a whole new type of deck and playstyle. And with that, I think he is worth probably the tokens if that's what you want to do. And he's very versatile. I made a Silver Surfer guide. I think there's a lot of ways that you can play the Surfer.
Surfer's excellent. I go back to playing Surfer as often as I can. It's one of my favorite archetypes by far. I think that the nerf, quote unquote, to Silver Surfer was actually low-key a very good change, giving him the additional 2 power while reducing his impact across the board, I think is fair. Because there was often times where you'd play Silver Surfer and like that dead 0 power actually impacted the game state. Having that additional 2 power makes a big difference. I think if the card's in a good spot, it's viable. It's not going to be your S tier deck, but it can get you to infinite.
Yep, no question. And we end on Kang, who I think is getting better as people forget he exists. Kang is just a very... people have their opinions on Kang. I actually think Kang is good. I think he's better than people think. Is he good for Snap? I don't know. Probably not. Is he going to be good for Conquest? Definitely not. But I do think Kang is a good card. He's a big bad. I don't think he's an easy 6K, but I do think... because he's a big bad, I would put him in the no regrets. He's not going to dip down. We can't put him anywhere else.
I don't know. Kang's the weirdest one. Even while you're talking, I don't even know what to say because I feel like I'm in the camp he's bad for the game. Like I don't think he's good for Marvel Snap. And you know what the problem is too? We're actually getting to the point where like we can almost predict a Kang Snap. Like they're in a losing board state, they just snap. Like there's a Kang Snap. Like it's getting weird.
I would say the opposite. I don't think you can predict it. I think the longer he's out, people are forgetting about that. People bluff Snap all the time. I think it's the opposite effect. But I agree, he's a very hard card to place. I think if this was like just a tier list off of like card value, he would be towards like the end of B. He just feels like it's like Ghost almost, right? Like, I'd rather put something in than have this kind of like niche situation card. Now Galactus, that's another story. I think he actually very much adds value to Galactus. That pay to win deck, the Null, the Galactus, the King, it's nuts. But I do think Kang, I don't know if this is going to be the iteration, the final one of him. We're just going to have to see. So this is our rankings, guys. You can see it. It's somewhat in order, somewhat not. But we have really well, I think it's obvious. If you have tokens to spare and you don't have Darkhawk, you don't have Zabu, those are the ones to get like right now. And then I would say probably you could look into there's plenty of lists out there when cards are going to be dropping. And if you look at the ones, let's say Sentry is going to be dropping, he's probably not worth it, right? I would save those tokens. But as for the rest of them, I think this is a pretty good placement. But overall, my number one advice is save your tokens for May and June. Because those cards, May and June's cards, which will be our next week's episode that we'll talk about, is going to be certified crack. and I cannot wait. Without question. Well, guys, that is going to be it for our 3 topics. Hopefully, you enjoyed today's video. We will see you in a little longer than usual, and that'll be on the Monday, and that's going to be kind of coming up close to the season reset. So I do hope you guys liked this episode of the Snapchat. Let us know by a review. It helps us a ton. Alex, man, it's looking bright. I'm excited for the future, bud.
Oh, the future of Marvel Snap is nothing but spectacular. I mean, this game continuously improves every single day. Every single patch brings it a step further to being the best game ever. And for me, it's my favorite game of all time, right? And I'm looking forward to every single additional patch. I can't wait. I can't wait for what comes next.
Without question, man. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for coming to yet another episode. If you want to go and catch the other topics, you can find them over on Alex's side of the channel, which is linked in the middle. Wish you guys a good one. Good luck in the final weeks of the ladder. And until the next one, guys, happy snapping.